of like how Green Bay tried to contain Colin Kaepernick, but they failed. At the end of the game, on a key third down play, did you guys see this? A cornerback for the Packers, I forget his name, he tried to blitz Colin Kaepernick, but he was supposed to contain. It was a contain play, and he just blew it, and then Colin Kaepernick ran for a 23-yard first down, which ultimately won the game for the 49ers. And that's going to be the key thing for San Francisco, to get to Seattle to play the NFC Conference Championship.
You know, I want to ask you this question before we move on. The Seahawks did play the Panthers, and I remember if the Niners do lose to the Panthers, I want to ask you this scenario. What do the Seahawks do against the Panthers? I know the Panthers is a hot team. I know the Seahawks only won by a throwing touchdown by Russell Wilson. I believe it was to Sidney Rice. I remember watching that game. What? It
was to Jermaine Kearse.
Jermaine Kearse, and that was the big play. I mean, how does this team look against Carolina?
Well, you look at this, two great defenses. I believe Seattle's the number one scoring defense. Carolina's the number two. You look at this, it's going to be a score of 10-9, kind of like the San Francisco game. How was it 10-9? The Seahawks game was 14-10 or something like that. It's going to be low scoring. There's not going to be many touchdowns. There will only be a couple field goals. And you look at this, and you think about how Steve Smith right now is questionable with a knee injury. And if you look at that, and the Seattle defense, you look at it and you think, okay, Legion of Boom. They're the secondary. They can lock down, cover, and just kick ass against any other wide receiving core in the NFL. And without a receiving core led by Steve Smith, you can't really do much against anybody because they don't really have many other guys on that team to go down the field and get the ball. And then you could probably drop a cornerback or a safety and bring another linebacker in to contain Cam Newton, which is the key again.
All right, let's go on to our next game. The earlier game today, it was the Chargers against the Bengals. Pretty good game overall. And the first, after one half, it was 10-7 with the Bengals. But in the second half, the Chargers blanked the Bengals, and they just ran away at this game, putting up 20 unanswered. 27-10, that's your final score. Disappointing game from Andy Dalton once again, though he had 334 passing yards, 2 picks. The surprise of the game was Ronnie Brown, 8 carries, 77 yards, and a touchdown score. What a great game that he had. And let's go to Nick Rice, who feels very happy. He is our man from Southern California, big Chargers fan. What are your thoughts from the Chargers beating, or I should say upsetting, the Cincinnati Bengals?
Yeah, it definitely did look like an upset after that game, didn't it? But basically what San Diego did was they forced Cincinnati into a game that they don't like to play, which is they blanketed A.J. Green and they blanketed Giovanni Bernard, which forced Andy Dalton to make the plays. And basically, I feel that Cincinnati is a lot like Houston. They don't really have an elite head coach, and they don't have an elite quarterback. It looks a lot like the Texans in 2011, where they just were so close to taking that next step. Many questioned the quarterback play, and things have really fallen apart. As much as this was the Chargers' win, it was more a Bengals loss. Cincinnati really has some work to do in the offseason. I believe that Marvin Lewis should be on his way out if Cincinnati wants to right the ship and turn around their failed season one more time. But for San Diego, what they did do is they played solid defense, which is something they haven't done all year long. They ranked 29th in the league. Turned around and they forced Andy Dalton into four turnovers, including 2 INTs, which was huge in that game. San Diego has a tough matchup next week against Denver, but after that game, they have proved to themselves more than anyone else that they can match up against a team like Peyton and slow them down, because the Broncos, they know a little bit about big play wide receivers. Demaryius Thomas, to some degree, is a little bit like A.J. Green to an extent. They shut down A.J. Green, and now that defense knows they can go up against anybody and at least hold them to a modest performance instead of what they're typically used to.
Oh, yes, definitely. Let's go to Robert now. How do you think about this upset at Paul Brown Stadium?
You know, Nick, I remember talking about this game, and you said that if Cincinnati scored first, this game would go to the Bengals. And, the Chargers gave it in.
Chargers scored first, but it was close.
Yes, it was, and it came down. That first half was, I thought that was going to be a nail-biter game, but then I look in the second half, wow, your offense did really well. Your defense picked up 2 big fumbles, and that's what really impressed me. Dalton made a really stupid mistake by diving, but he didn't get touched. He let the ball loose. And Giovanni Bernard getting stripped. I mean, Nick, this defense for this Chargers team is so impressive right now. And they were hot today. I mean, Rivers only had 128 yards passing, and that can be a concern. But when your defense plays really well, this game is set. I mean, Brown had a great game with 8 carries for 77 yards, and he had that touchdown, and he had that long run for 58 yards. Nick, this game is gonna look.
Yeah, I mean, Robert, you mentioned it though. Just real quick though, Ronnie Brown and Danny Woodhead being the 2 main leaders rushing the football after the first quarter, but San Diego's not going to get anywhere. I just want to basically pop the balloon here that we have San Diego, one of the best teams in the AFC. Cincinnati's a team that has so many problems in the postseason. Don't take this 17-point victory too seriously, because Denver is going to be an extremely tough place to play. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers cannot pull it out against the Broncos. I personally have San Diego winning the game, but the Chargers are going to be in a huge battle offensively. For a majority of the contest, we didn't do a very good job passing the football. We had to allude to 40 run plays in the game. 40 of the 56 offensive plays were running plays, and that definitely poses for a concern when we're going up against Peyton Manning, or potentially if we beat him against New England or Indianapolis, where offensively they don't have any sort of problems putting up points. San Diego offensively all year long, that was their mantra, to be able to pass the football, but recently, it has been a running football team, and the mantra of running the rock in the playoffs, I don't think is going to bode very well, and don't expect your defense to force 10 points every week.
And, Nick, this team, though, this team has been impressive all season long. They barely make the playoffs. They are the underdogs right now in the playoffs, and this team just came out of nowhere and beat Cincinnati once again. And, Ian, I want to go to you for the next question here. What did Cincinnati do wrong?
Cincinnati, it's the quarterback play. Andy Dalton, I look at Andy Dalton and I see Tony Romo. I'm sorry, Andy Dalton, but you're Tony Romo now. You're a younger Tony Romo. You can't play in the playoffs. You fall under clutch. It's one of those things. He's a decent, above average, regular season QB. He can put up all the stats he wants. But then when it comes down to when it really matters in the playoffs and in clutch situations, he just fails. He can't do it. He falls under the pressure, and he turns over the ball. He makes bad, stupid decisions, like diving head first and fumbling the ball. It's just one of those things. It's just the QB. They have a good wide receiving core. They have a good defensive line. They have a mediocre defense. They don't have a great defense. They don't have an awful defense. But I look to this team next year being good, probably getting rid of their head coach, and it's just quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, let's take basically this whole situation comes down to one thing. You mentioned an average defense. How about Cincinnati over the regular season ranked 3rd in the league in defense, only behind. We're going to take a second look at that and get you the regular season stats. But basically, Cincinnati was actually very good. No, they did rank 3rd. They ranked only behind the Panthers and the Seahawks for the best defense in the league. So the defense was not the problem during the regular season. And the offense, I mean, basically, you're going to tell me that Andy Dalton can't get a better record than New England when Tom Brady's working with Michael Humanamanui at tight end and Aaron Dobson at wide receiver. Meanwhile, Andy Dalton throws 25 interceptions this year with A.J. Green, Jermaine Gresham, Tyler Eifert, Mohamed Sanu, and Marvin Jones at wide receiver. Excuse me, but, Andy Dalton is, arguably a below-average quarterback right now. Based off of his performance this year and his supporting cast.
Oh, yeah. I feel like the Bengals relied on him too much. 51 passing attempts in a playoff game, that's just relying on a young quarterback just too much. And I like what Ian said about Andy Dalton being like a Tony Romo. I feel like that's the case. But I see a lot of potential in Andy Dalton. Fortunately for him, he's got a great receiving core that's got A.J. Green, an all-pro a wide receiver. He's got Marvin Jones that, he's inconsistent, but when A.J. Green is double and triple covered, he's going to be wide open, and that's a good thing for Andy Dalton. Plus, he's got a couple of good tight ends in Jermaine Gresham, if he stays healthy, and Tyler Eifert, who just started who's a rookie. He's going to be a second-year tight end soon. And I think he needs to just take that all together and, make a difference out of that. He just can't be coming up small in the playoffs. He had 33 passing touchdowns, 20 interceptions, and just, those are great stats, but those stats don't reflect really well on you if you don't really transfer that over to the postseason. We spent a lot of time on the Niners game. Let's go with final thoughts right now. Let's go first to Nick Rice, who probably is giving a very happy final thought.
You're acting like all I do is watch football. Basically, this game between the Chargers and the Bengals, the most telling thing to me was exactly how dysfunctional Cincinnati's organization is. Don't be surprised if the Bengals take a turn for the worst here in the coming years, because they have such a great defensive receiving core. It's really sad that all this talent is going to waste. I'm just looking statistically at how great they are as a football team, and they're just one guy short, which is the quarterback. And while Andy Dalton isn't terrible, he's definitely no Phillip Rivers, like we saw in this game, where Andy Dalton, all he really needed to be was a game manager. But Steven alluded to it earlier, and I love the point. 51 pass attempts is no way to win a football game, whether you are a Tom Brady or an Andy Dalton. Basically, they should have ran the football more, but more than that, they should have gotten a better quarterback, or they should at least take a look in the draft at getting another gunslinger that can help your team. Because if Andy Dalton's not the answer, you gotta believe that somebody else might give you more production there at the quarterback position.
Final thoughts, Ian, on this game. Ian. Well, we have some...
Sorry. Here, I'm back.
Oh, okay. A little bit of pause there. Ian, your final thoughts on this game.
Like I was saying to myself while I had my mic muted, I heard this while I was watching the game. I think it might have been Joe Buck. I don't remember exactly who was commentating the game, but he made a comment about bringing in a veteran quarterback to kind of mentor Andy Dalton, kind of like a John Kitna, except for someone who's not teaching. Give him a little more experience. Bring a competitor to the table to make Andy Dalton get better. Go to the film room and really strive to get better. I'm not sure he's all that competitive right now to get better, to make himself the best QB in the NFL. I don't think he has a backup who can compete with him at all at this point. And to look to the future, yeah, they are. Right now, they are in some trouble. They have to do some major reconstruction during the offseason.
Yeah, actually, one thing I do want to add, sorry to kill your vibe here, Steven, but one thing that I also did hear is that Cincinnati, how in the world do the Bengals, they were scoreless in the second half, they're such a great talent, but how in the world do you work as hard as you can to try and win this game when you have a quarterback that you expect to screw up in big moments, like Andy Dalton has done time and time again? How in the world can you win anymore with Andy Dalton when all your teammates expect him to make a mistake when the matters are at their biggest.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And just, rookie year in the playoffs against the Texans, we expect that,